It is Wednesday, March 6th, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a jujitsu-less get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday. Yes, unfortunately the snow hath returned, and hopefully we'll actually make it through this entire episode without any kind of interruption. It's weird. About the time I was thinking about taking off and going to Jiu-Jitsu, I'm looking out the window, man, and it's coming down just as hard as it did the other day. And I mean, we've recently been snowed in for a week. I mean, I literally missed a week of shows due to snow, and that's not really normal. So anyway, yeah, I was anticipating the snow on the way back in, that it may in fact be too problematic to deal with, and so I opted not to go in because, again, I was just going by the current volume of snow that was falling, and I was just like, there's no way in hell, man. If I actually get out there, I'm gonna be driving back through about 3 inches of snow at the rate of fall it's currently coming down. So prudence won out, and I did not in fact go to Jiu-Jitsu today. I feel terrible about it, especially because yesterday we had a really interesting thing go on yesterday, and I've been trying to add more days of Jiu-Jitsu, or at least more days of the week to my Jiu-Jitsu schedule. And so I went in for both Monday's class and Tuesday's class this week. I did not stay for the second class as I would normally do, but that was because I spent the majority of the previous class getting my ass kicked, or I don't know, I kicked a little bit of ass. I got in an arm bar, and I got in an arm triangle, but it was white belt, color belt sparring night, and you know, it was like going back in memory lane, you know, and had a really wide variety of skill and body shapes and sizes and whatnot to deal with. And I was quite impressed with the improvement of a couple of my teammates, you know, that I've rolled with them multiple times, and they've all been getting incrementally better. So, of course, it's getting tougher for me to do stuff to them. But, nonetheless, I did get in a lick or two yesterday. I'm still having a lot of trouble figuring out which to disengage first, my arms or my legs. You know, it's like I get people wrapped up in my guard really, really easily. And when I say wrapped, I mean both arms and legs. So it's like I gotta pick one or the other to disengage and work with. And so yesterday I actually caught myself while I was rolling. I'm like, okay, I've got both of his arms. Oh shit, I've got him in guard too. Okay, so maybe if I do this, you know, where I disengage with my legs and just hold him in with my arms, I might be able to sweep him. And that's exactly what I did. I swept him. It was a pretty good sweep too. And I got in some bruising on guys. Like the first round was just escape. What is it? Pass keep, and but that's all it was. No submissions. And the first kid I rolled with, I think I passed his guard like 8 times in a minute. But, you know, the thing is that the kid really didn't know what he was doing. And so, it's one of those things where he was so new to it that having any idea what to do was very, very tough for him to kind of bring in. And so, you know, I wanted to take it easy on him. But at the same time, it's one of those opportunities that we as colored belts have. Actually get that with any kind of open mat or anything like that, but you know, specifically where the white belts are given an opportunity to go specifically against a colored belt, to get an idea of what their skill level really is. And like I said, I was fairly impressed with a couple of the guys that I rolled with in the volume of improvement. But where I caught myself doing that, it was with one of the more skilled guys, where I had him tied up, man. I had his legs, I had his arms. It was time for a sweep. yeah, a lot of fun. And you know, I had one guy who's very, very energetic, you know, and I would wager that he's probably a high energy guy to begin with, but I think he was also ingesting quite a bit of caffeine, and that doesn't do anything to really help your jiu-jitsu, oddly enough. What it does do is make you all jittery, and if you're having trouble with indecisiveness to begin with, if you're additionally jittery, you have that much less confidence in your grips and shit, and so it's kind of like quicksand. It's kind of like trying to do jiu-jitsu in quicksand, and it's not really a good place to be. You know, you want to be nice, calm, collected, have your heart rate as low as possible, have your breathing as low as possible, just for those moments where you do need to expend a lot of energy, and you got that kind of energy reserve behind you to get you through the next bit of impasse you may be experiencing, you know. And so, like I said, I could feel a lot of that tension on the guys that I was rolling with, and I don't know if it's just because I'm kind of big and scary, but I mean, I'm not really. I'm only like 5'6", so it's like, you know, how scary can I really be, right? I mean, but I do carry around a little bit of muscle, so. But one of the things that happened, and it was like the greatest fucking compliment I've gotten since I started doing jiu-jitsu, where one of the gentlemen I rolled with, and I remember his name, but I'm not going to tell you, just because no names. Anyway, he told me that one of his friends that also trains with us at Northwest Martial Arts had rolled with me before and commented on having rolled with me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that guy was saying you're really great." And I'm like, "Oh my god, oh my ego, you know." And I wanted to take it in an ego sense, but like really, that's just like the greatest compliment that I think I can receive is when I've actually impressed or somebody had a lot of fun rolling with me. And was like commenting to somebody else about it, or how good I was, or whatever. You know what I mean? That's just like, you know, I would have just as enjoyed it just as much if it came from him. You know, and I'm sure if I impressed him that much, it probably came from him too at the same time. But you know, it's one thing for you to say it, but it's another thing to get it like from a secondhand source. It's like, you guys actually talked about rolling with me? That's funny. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, it's just like a mimic of like, you know, rolling with somebody like really, really big or something like that, or I don't know. It just, like I said, very, very humbling compliment, and I'm glad to have received it. Hopefully, most people that roll with me get that feeling. You know, and it was funny. The guy, and I think I even described rolling with him previously, or it might have been another guy that had the similar issue, where he was having a lot of trouble figuring out where to go, and so a lot of times he was wearing my weight. You know, where I would get in a top position and whatnot, and be kind of suppressing him with my weight. And so I paused a moment and I showed him, I said, "Look, dude, if you're in this kind of position, what you really want to do is find a place to anchor your arms and shrimp the fuck out of it. Reverse shrimp, regular shrimp. You know, get your arm between me and you, extend a little bit, and then shrimp. You know, give yourself a little bit of room and create that space and then shrimp out of it." Fuck. Man, from that point on, it was like I just covered him with a whole bunch of KY jelly, man. He just like slipped all the fucking... I couldn't get a grip on him. So it didn't help that he wasn't wearing a gi, but that's beside the point. The fact of the matter is that I even kind of pantomimed his body through. I'm like, okay, so like, you get your arm up, okay, and then take your hips, and I grabbed his hips and I just swung him out to the side, you know, to kind of guide him through the motion or whatever. And you know, get your weight out, get your body out from under me, you know. And like I said, after that, it's like he was shrimping all over the fucking place, and I couldn't get a grip on him anymore. So, you know, again, that's one of those things that is very, very rewarding to me in jiu-jitsu is when I can say something or try and guide somebody in some way, and it's actually effective for them when they try and utilize it, and they immediately utilize it. It's not like something where you the instructor shows you, and then you go off in your little corner, and no. This was immediate. It's like I gave him the body motion, and he immediately implemented it. It's like there was a broken synapse in there that wasn't connecting between what I was saying and what he should be doing, and it's just that movement of pushing his hips, that was enough to link it up, and it's oh, that makes sense. Shrimp. So like I said, those are the things that I find most rewarding. Not only my own kind of moments where it's it all locks in. It's that sweep. I did another sweep on a guy that I felt was almost just as good, as where I had started it in almost an arm triangle position. I had my arm up over his shoulder and had the gable grip around the shoulder, and I squeezed it in just a little bit, and then I let go with my legs because I also had him trapped in my guard, and I then swept him. And that was a really good one because it also set it up for a couple other things. If I wanted to take that to a Kimura, or if I wanted to be really tricky, I could probably take that all the way around to an arm bar really easily. So, it was a very, very good sweep. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. And, somebody had commented something, and amazingly enough, it fit with one of my favorite songs. And so I got to throw it down as our first dance. A little bit of Bloodlust by Body Count. First dance here on Coin Metal. Let me find it. There it is. Bloodlust. And that was 12-Foot Ninja with Silent Machine. And speaking of silent machines, there's always that security surveillance apparatus out there and what it's trying to do in crypto and elsewhere. And I caught this, and it's so much akin to my own thinking as far as cryptocurrencies are concerned that, I figured it was probably worth a go. And so this one's on news.bitcoin.com. Kaspersky. Bitcoin needs less government control and more collaboration. I don't know if I agree with that, but this is dated March 7th. What the fuck? I guess this is from the future, March 7th, 2019. So, yeah, here we go. Russian cybersecurity expert Eugene Kaspersky has said cryptocurrencies can be a success, but only if governments stop trying to control them, or alternatively, when all countries unite under a single global government. However, the billionaire does not believe Bitcoin will replace the existing financial system, despite the currency's great qualities. Governments of Earth. Speaking to the Dubai-based magazine Arabian Business, Kaspersky opined that cryptocurrencies are ahead of their time. Quote, "Cryptocurrencies are a great idea, but the world is not ready for them quite yet," said Kaspersky, Chief Executive Officer of IT security company Kaspersky Labs. Quote, "The world must be united if we want to have encrypted currencies. At the moment, governments will want to control them. I believe that in the future, perhaps in 100 years' time, all the world's governments will be one government. States will unite under the global government, and only then will we have one currency. Some other currencies may be available, but on a global scale, the currency will be unified," he predicted. Yeah, he's also full of shit. Bitcoin, the world's #1 cryptocurrency, has lost more than 80% of its value since December 2017's high of almost $20,000, in a downturn that has shaken the cryptocurrency industry to its core. The bear market has carried on into 2019, with Bitcoin Core swinging between $3,300 and $4,000. However, adoption continues to grow. A number of businesses now accept Bitcoin and other altcoins for payment, while institutional investors have started moving into the space. Yeah, that's bullshit. Dude, they've been here since like 2013, 2012, 2013, around there. Anyway, continuing on. A number of businesses now accept Bitcoin and altcoins as payments, blah, blah, blah. Something that's been described by observers as key to cryptocurrency mainstreaming. Not just use, but also mining. Digital currencies are the currencies of the future, are a currency of the future, I will say. In the Arabian Business interview, Kaspersky said digital currencies will dominate the financial system in the future rather than fiat notes and coins. He argued, quote, "Today's digital currencies, such as Bitcoin, cannot replace the current financial system, but some of the ideas and techniques on which these currencies are based can be used in the future currency with little modification, leveraging blockchain technology." Dude, this guy right there, he's immediately starting to draw his opinion into a little bit of a gray area as far as quality or legitimacy. And I'll get back to that. As a single global currency, Bitcoin is viewed as key to ending willful currency manipulation, eliminating excessive transaction fees, and improving transparency in global pricing, among other things. Not if you're just transacting little like IOU bits. That's just back to what we already have with Visa. Kaspersky Labs is a multinational cybersecurity and antivirus provider headquartered in Moscow, Russia, and operated by a holding company in the UK. It was founded in 1997 by Eugene Kaspersky, Natalia Kaspersky, and Alexei D. Munderik. The company, which reported revenue of $698 million in 2017, develops and sells antivirus software, internet security, password management, endpoint security, and other cybersecurity products and services. What do you think of Kaspersky's comments? Let us know in the comments below. I will just say that they're about 60% kind of maybe correct. Only in the context of a world where we only have one currency, which I've opined multiple times on this show is never going to happen. There are multiple reasons for currencies to exist. You know, for one, the availability of one currency is not necessarily universal. You know, if somebody doesn't have US dollars, they can't pay you in US dollars. You know, unless of course they're a bank, then they can wave the magic wand and add some zeros to the left of the left of the decimal point, and you're all good to go. But in crypto world, we actually have to perform work to get the coins, unless of course you're doing something like an ICO where you have an arbitrary valuation that you establish to begin with, and say, you know, we are willing to take X amount of Ethereum for one of our butt tokens, right? And it's really an interesting way to pre-fund, and where the SEC is really fucked up on this, and where they continue to fuck up on this, is that if there are verifiable reserves of Ethereum or Bitcoin or Ethereum Classic or whatever the fuck on a blockchain, and we can view it and we know for absolutely certain that these tokens are being issued against it, then the whole necessity for there to be a regulatory body overseeing that goes away. Because the SEC acts as an agent of trust. When they put their seal of approval on shit, that says to the market, hey, these guys are legit at least for the next 60 days until they have to report back to us, and then, you know, maybe something might have changed in that time. But you'll know because, you know, as soon as they report back to us. But if they fail to report back to us, they'll only have 60 additional days to commit their fraud and front run you and sell out from under you and all that other shit before we actually issue any kind of cease and desist orders. So, you know, you've been given that level of assurance, right? In cryptocurrencies, we don't have that luxury. If you fuck up, we don't have the SEC's fucking 100 days or whatever to account for shit. The shit's either not in somebody's wallet or it's in somebody's wallet. If it's not in your wallet and it's not in the person that you sent it to's wallet and it's in somebody else's wallet, we gotta work on trying to track that shit down. Resolve that bullshit. Because that's not just a threat to us, it's a threat to the entire economy that this transaction's occurred in, and we gotta resolve that. There's a lot more on the line here. And I think it's something that too many people are very, very aloof about. It's a terrible amount of responsibility that you put on yourself by endeavoring to be, say, a developer or something like that for a cryptocurrency. And I got to take my hat off to any of them that are still out there working away into the night trying to make their coin better than anything else available. And it's funny to me that anybody thinks that there needs to be government oversight in that. I mean, when you look at where we've allowed government oversight to come in, and exactly what the effects have been on the market, we find that even worse scams than were ever possible in an open and completely publicly monitored and regulated space. I mean, I'll give you an example, and we're going to read this one next, just because. Quadriga CX. They were, according to some accounts, the biggest exchange in Canada for cryptocurrency. And yet it turns out that there's still a great deal of fuckery going on with regard to resolving exactly whose funds were where, and exactly all that happened. And so I got this little report here, if it ever finishes loading. Oh shit, it's not so little, it's 50 pages. We're probably not going to be able to get through all of it. But we can at least taste the abstract, I'm sure. There's an introduction and purpose, and we might not have to go through all of it. And we'll at least go through terms of reference. Well, I don't know, this thing goes pretty quick. Let's see. I'm checking and verifying because the spacing makes it look like something we could actually cover between music breaks. And if we decide that it is too long at a later time, we can always break it off like a turd. But anyway, my idea of what happened with Quadriga was they were not a legitimate cryptocurrency exchange in any way, shape, or form. That they were actually managing the funds on other exchanges such as Kraken, and that they were essentially identity thieves posing as a legitimate exchange. And somehow they managed to get away with it for a significant period of time. And you gotta wonder what changed. Something always changes, Usually an exit scam of this magnitude, it only continues as long as it's easy to continue. When it becomes too expensive to try and maintain the charade, too many people are cashing out and you're having trouble cashing out to them, and that's causing some concern, that's usually the time to bail. But these guys, an aspect of it that I think is very little reported is that the quote-unquote CEO of this organization was previously arrested and sentenced to prison and shit for identity theft and bank fraud. So you want to tell me the stripes changed on that tiger? I don't think so. I think they just figured out a new way to scam. Anyway, let's get into this thing just to sample. Wait a minute. Oh yeah. This one is probably the most clear net, or one of them, references that people will be thrown at. So let's go ahead and throw it down. This is on markets.businessinsider.com. experts finally cracked the laptop of crypto CEO who died with sole access to $137 million. But the money was already gone. This is by Theron Mohammed, authored March 6, 2019, 12:18 p.m. No indication of time zone. Shame on you, Theron. But yeah, penis. Millions of dollars were missing when the CEO of a crypto exchange died without sharing the passwords to his accounts. Investigators recently cracked his laptop, only to find the money was already gone. Gerald Cotton, the founder of Quadriga CX, was thought to have had sole access to the funds and coins exchanged on it. After his death in December, his colleagues said that about $137 million in cryptocurrency belonging to about 115,000 customers was held offline in quote-unquote cold storage and inaccessible. The case has sparked numerous theories, including that Cotton faked his own death and ran off with the cash. Yeah, that's my thesis. A coin-appointed auditor, Ernst & Young, was able to crack Cotton's laptop and found that the accounts were emptied in April, 8 months before his death, it said in a report last week. Quote, in April 2018, the remaining Bitcoin in the identified Bitcoin cold wallets was transferred out, bringing the balances down to nil, the report said. The investigators said they found other issues too, such as that Quadriga kept, quote, limited books and records and never reported its financials. Ernst & Young also said it found 14 user accounts linked to Cotton that traded on Quadriga's exchange and withdrew cryptocurrency to addresses not tied to Quadriga. Burdened with $190 million in debt and unable to find or access the money, Quadriga filed for creditor protection in late January. A Nova Scotia court threw the company a lifeline this week, granting a 45-day extension that prevents creditors from filing lawsuits against it until mid-April. Kraken and other crypto exchanges offering $100,000 for information on where Quadriga's cash is gone. So yeah, that's like the most clear web version of this story, and yeah, the illusion of safety that is endowed to these entities. You know, I'm sure there was some sort of, I don't know, bullshit certificate of approval on the exchange. So even when people did investigate into, you know, are these guys backed by anything? Are they a legal exchange? Either that or maybe they didn't care. You know, because honestly, I don't really care as long as the fucking transaction clears. You know, I think the question of legality is something that doesn't really matter in cryptocurrencies unless, of course, we are talking about the big ones, such as fraud, or theft, or murder. Just because it happens in cryptocurrencies does not mean these crimes have changed. Robbery, extortion, you know, blackmail, the ransom. These are all crimes. We have plenty of fucking laws establishing what are the elements of these crimes. You know, what elements constitute these crimes, right? We've got centuries worth of law and court records on the books documenting exactly the elements of fraud, theft, robbery, extortion, bribery, so on and so forth. And worse yet with cryptocurrencies is that these can all be proven. If you start proving establishing enough elements of the crime elsewhere, the actual transfer of funds is the one that is most easily documentable. And this is something that I think a lot of people kind of, you know, gloss over. This is where the lack of need for any kind of government supervision exists in cryptocurrencies is that we have the means to verify, we have the means to investigate. They are openly available. We do not need a special investigator or private investigator or whatever to do it for us. It's as simple as a Google search. If you have any kind of idea what questions to ask, the information makes itself readily available. So trying to establish that a crime actually happened is that much easier. You know, it's like guns are not the crime of murder themselves. It's only when somebody takes a gun and shoots somebody else and that person dies of the gun wound, the bullet wound, that there's been some association between a gun and murder. But somebody had to do it. The same thing with cryptocurrencies. The money goes from one person to another, one entity or another, one wallet or to another, and we can see it. And you want to keep this shit as public as possible for exactly this reason. And yeah, sure, you might bristle about it, but when you want to talk about who the responsible party is, it's usually the person paying for it. And when you can trace it back to exactly who is fucking paying for it, you know who to throw in jail. You know who to throw in prison. You know who to put on death row or whatever. And it's not necessarily the guy who actually committed the crime. It's probably the guy that actually paid for him to commit the crime. People do things for reasons. There is no motivationless crime that happens. You know, even ones that are based on hallucination, where you thought something was going on and it wasn't really going on, but you acted on it anyway and committed some sort of crime. I mean, like actual crime, like murder, theft, robbery, whatever. You know, that's something for you to deal with at that point. But the cryptocurrency itself isn't the crime. It might be a tool that's used in the crime, but it's not necessarily a crime in and of itself. As far as I'm concerned, taxation is theft, so there you go. Let's go ahead and throw back down into some music, and I'm feeling the need for some voivod. I can't explain it. Maybe it's a little bit of orb confusion here on Coin Metal. And that was Strapping Young Lad with All Hail the New Flesh. Anyway, I was doing a little investigating on my old Twitter feed, as I normally do during music breaks. I'm just kind of digging up some stuff that I wanted to talk about that's kind of along the lines of where exactly we've been going all night. And it's stuff like this that really leads me to wonder exactly how much government influence should be taken seriously within cryptocurrencies. I don't really get the impression that a lot of people are taking it all that seriously. I mean, I see a lot of advisements on taxation and whatnot, but you know, the more I look into that stuff, the more I find that it seems like there's like not all that much like actual compliance going on. And it's funny to me because we really haven't been here very long as far as the monetary situation, where there are only so many currencies and they're state issued or at least monitored or regulated by a banking entity, either private or state run. And the evidence for that is all you got to do is watch these guys with metal detectors, especially here in America, because if you watch the guys that are doing their thing back east, you know, back where the original 13 colonies were, you know, Vermont, New York, what's it? I want to say New Jersey, Virginia, Massachusetts. If you go back there and like you watch the videos of those guys doing their thing with metal detectors, you find they're finding coins from all over the fucking place, and as late as like the mid 1800s, if not early 1900s, there were still circulating farthings and reals and all and pounds, British pounds or whatever. Those were being circulated here in the United States as coinage. That's why you find them in the dirt, is because somebody had it at one point, maybe while they were all still guys that just came over on the Mayflower or whatever. But the point is that the coins that they had, that they were circulating in as currency in the locality, were not strictly US dollars, and were not strictly Virginia coinage or Massachusetts coinage or whatever state coinage that they were in. And so the idea of monetary monopolies being entities of a state or a how should I say this, an article of the state is it's a thing that's going out of vogue, I would say, because the fact of the matter is that the average 14-year-old could cobble together a fucking cryptocurrency these days with their experience on computers and other digital items, such as their cell phones and whatnot. Their exposure to digital life is much different than those of my generation, or even a couple generations after mine, for that matter. We're just not born into this, but the ones that are coming up now, they're terribly tech savvy. And it is with them that the new economies will emerge. And when you got some 14 and 15-year-old now who is used to being able to transact with people all over the fucking planet without having to ask mommy or daddy, and you tell that kid, oh, you got to do it within this certain... the kid's going to go, no, I'm just going to continue doing what I was doing over here, and you can just... Yeah, you can go fuck off. I'm not going to do that. That's the market. That's the reality that we've been emerging into and kind of flirting with for the last decade. To varying degrees, at least. And so I got this article here, and I've got another one that I wanted to follow up too. This one was actually translated. I had to use Google Translate for this, and I guess Google, that's something that can be said for them, is that they do have a pretty good translate page, and it allows you to read this stuff in English. Anyway, so this is on translategoogle.com. Who was the original one? DiarioBitcoin.com. Cryptocurrencies take the billboards of Caracas. And this is authored March 7th, 2019. So apparently whoever wrote this was a time traveler. In Venezuela, the interest grows to be cryptocurrency traders, so several training institutions have emerged. Many have left their jobs to devote themselves to the crypto world. More and more Venezuelans are searching for more knowledge about the management of an investment portfolio based on cryptocurrencies. The difficulties to access currencies and hyperinflation are factors that drive the use of this financial instrument to protect your money and increase your assets. In fact, in Caracas, the country's capital, more and more billboards announce crypto services. According to data from the localbitcoins.com page, Venezuela is one of the markets where most cryptocurrencies are traded, reaching between $800,000 and $1 million each week. Train. With this boom in the purchase of cryptocurrencies in the country, several exchange platforms have been created, but also Venezuelans seek to train themselves to become specialized traders or brokers. Since last year, companies and institutions that promoted the formation of the digital economy have emerged. There is a group of companies, some good, not so... What? Quote, there's a group of companies, some good, not so much, that are dedicated to training Venezuelans and equipping them with the tools for understanding trading and exchange activity for the sale of shares or debt, commodities, and now also for managing a portfolio of investment derivatives and or cryptocurrencies, said Arun Olmos, a professor at the Central University of Venezuela, and a member of the Digital Culture Center. And it is for 2 years, many Venezuelans have begun to understand that it is a very interesting way to earn money in crypto or currency equivalent for activities that do not happen to be sitting at the computer no less than 2 hours a day, or activities that do not happen to be. Okay. Gurus in the subject. Quote, 6 years ago, there was no talk in Venezuela about cryptocurrencies, and now there are even gurus on the subject. We have people who come from the world of finance with expertise in financial issues in recognized national and international institutions who have worked in the area and/or stock exchange of Caracas for many years, that formally and responsibly have begun to give their first Forex courses oriented to cryptocurrencies, said Olmos. However, he argues that there are also groups of people who have started to give trading courses for cryptocurrencies, skipping a lot of relevant financial information. In this particular market, there are people with a lot of knowledge, but others who do not know much about the subject, but they are still trying to give tools to those interested to create accounts in the exchange platforms and generate $200 or $300 in a few hours. Some people do well, and others do not. These cryptocurrency workshops are usually expensive and charged in US dollars or their equivalent in bolivars at the parallel exchange rate, so it is necessary to corroborate how effective they are. Test and authorization. There's something that has to be considered, and that is, in Venezuela, to be able to generate a broker activity or become a formal investment advisor must present and pass a test that requires the state through the National Securities Superintendency. After that, an authorization and an accreditation is granted. Quote, there are some people who have an international certification as Chartered Market Technician, CMT, and 2 of them are in Venezuela, but we have a very messy market and many people self-appointed after having done a course on YouTube for 2 days, and they immediately place their profiles on social networks that are traders. To train as a trader, you must study finance, specialization, and then be certified, said Olmos. No, you don't. You don't need any of those things to trade cryptocurrencies. You just need an account. Actually, you don't even need that. You just need somebody who's willing to trade with you. Anyway, continuing on. There are many who consider that specializing in this manner takes a long time, but in Venezuela there are solutions for those who want a short career. Several entities emerged to teach people the tools required to carry a trading platform for commodities or cryptocurrencies. Diplomas, workshops, and courses are given in companies such as Financial Technology, 4G Organization, Dash Venezuela, or Venezuelan Data Center, Cevidatos, I guess, as well as institutions such as the Institute of Higher Studies in Administration, IESA, and the Cryptoeconomics Studies Center, in conjunction with a Venezuelan university. And I guess that's Bicenteria de Aragua, and the Digital Culture Center in partnership with the UCV. Fences of Caracas. In the current hyperinflationary context that Venezuela is experiencing, and with the higher price of the dollar in the parallel market, because many people find the subject of cryptocurrencies attractive, that is why the explosion of people learning trading and also the emergence of virtual exchange houses. Quote, there are a lot of people who have created companies in the management of platforms that have done very well. I know some traders who have earned a lot of money and who in the end have made the turn to make their main activity. I know people who have left their jobs in banks or in other companies and have dedicated themselves to this activity, notes Olmos. In the country, digital exchange platforms have been created, many of which have learned about their existence through spectacular and illuminated billboards located in the capital, Caracas. The huge and expensive announcements seem to reaffirm to the interested parties the lucrativeness of the business. Quote, until December 2017, there were 5 companies that were engaged in the exchange of cryptocurrencies. No brokers were sold in local currency in bolivars or were exchanged for other cryptocurrencies such as Coil, Bit, Mango Market, Monkey Coin Exchange, CryptoWay, and LifeX. Weird. Oh, CryptoLifeX. Got it. Then in May of 2018, after the appearance of the Petro, quote, the digital currency of the government, the mandatory registration was ordered to register before the superintendent of cryptocurrency. These companies left the Venezuelan market, says Olmos. Permissible exchanges. As of May 22nd, the first exchange platform or exchange allowed by the government, called MenX, was launched, and then many others that up to date are about 8, according to CryptoChain, Cave Blockchain, APX Trade, Banker Exchange, Amberus Coin, Cryptolago, and Cryptia Exchange were authorized to exchange commons for bolivars, currencies, and petros. Quote, there are many complaints from the cryptocurrency platforms because they have not yet been able to operate in a form that they were created thinking of an international market in the United States or in any other nation. However, they have not been activated because if you want to buy bitcoins, you will go to local bitcoins, not to the locals. You go to pages outside of Venezuela. But they were created to exchange petros. They are waiting, explained Olmos. Yeah, you know what? The creation of the petro is kind of stalling. I think it's just stalling a little bit of the legitimate development of cryptocurrency markets within Venezuela. I mean, they still have the issue of mining going on there, where they don't really have control over any of it. And so I think that whole market is going to be kind of interesting for a little while, where they're having to go behind closed doors and do private transactions just to continue. You know, it's like they're going off of the Venezuelan pages. You know, they're going into Colombian pages for local Bitcoin sources and just going there instead, man. Like, can you blame them? You know, they bring the coin into the Venezuelan economy and then they can circulate it there. You know, they can exchange it for other coins. I don't know. I think that in the longer term, the more state regulation is applied to cryptocurrency exchanges, the more the people that are really involved in this shit will navigate away from them. I've explained this multiple times on this show. You know, I think I've explained it a few times with regard to like sand in your hand. Have you ever like tried to hold sand in your hand and then like really squeeze it to, you know, make sure you got a really firm grip on that sand? By the time you get your hand like completely closed up and you're not letting out any more sand, there's so little sand left in there that it's not really worth holding on to. And that's really how I see these markets, is that there are certain pressures And, and Coinbase is a good example of this, where people are talking about deleting their Coinbase accounts because these people they just purchased, I guess, Neutrino or some shit like that. And there were several people in that were called, I guess, that were part of an entity called the Hacker Group. And this entity was involved in developing software to ferret out dissidents, and so that governments could locate them and imprison them and shit like that. Which is kind of antithetical to the whole cypherpunk ethos and all that. But these are factors that determine how you will participate in the market and who you will do business with, and what currencies that you will use. You get like BSV, where they're talking about how, or at least Craig is talking about how compliant and all that he wants to be with governments and whatnot. I think that's silly. I think once you understand that cryptocurrencies exist completely out of the realm of control of governments with regard to their governance, once you understand that, it's like, why do I want to develop this new saddle for some governing entity to sit on top of and dictate to everybody else? I've also explained what the response to that is that we create another cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or some other altcoin that does what we want it to do and does not involve government, or involves government only as much as we want it to. And this shit's going to continue to happen until government gives up on it. They're going to be happy circulating their coins, and we're going to be happy circulating our coins, and never the twain shall probably meet. And eventually I think that government as it exists today will not exist in the future. That we won't be willing to pay enough taxation to maintain some fucking robot army over us even. Not counting, soldiers and policemen and all that other shit. But actually replacing those people with robots has an infrastructure expense. Anywho, I got this article here, and I think it's hilarious given the context that we've been going in here. And I don't know if I want to. I'll go with this one first because I think it's emblematic of what we're talking about here. And this is on news.btc.com. Is largely unbanked Africa primed for Bitcoin adoption? Maybe not Bitcoin adoption, but certainly cryptocurrency adoption. This is by Rick D. So yes, penis. This is authored on March 6, 2018, 11 p.m. No indication of time zone. Shame on you, Rick. For many of the unconverted in the so-called developed world, Bitcoin is seen as something for speculators at best and criminals at worst. However, as the highly respected Bitcoin evangelist Andreas Antonopoulos argues, one of the most revolutionary adoption cases for Bitcoin won't be in the United States or UK or Australia. In these countries and other, quote, first world nations, adequate banking services are seen as a given and are largely taken for granted. Across much of Africa, by contrast, bank accounts are difficult to set up, inconvenient, and expensive. Is Bitcoin tailor-made for Africa? Huge parts of the African continent lack adequate banking facilities. A report in Elixir states that as much as 66% of the population, including living in sub-Saharan Africa, have no bank account. With a population of over 2.16 billion in 2016, this is a lot of people who could potentially be served by Bitcoin.
The opportunity for Bitcoin in Africa was highlighted by Twitter user cryptocurrencies_AUS earlier today. The infographic pictured below was first published in 2016 by Africa Key Partners. However, quote, when you see it, what Bitcoin can do for the unbanked in Africa and how prime it is. And then there's some picture on there that we can't really see. As you can see from the image above, the 167,335,676 people on the continent use the internet, and 11% of those have access to a broadband connection. Naturally, since the above infographic is now over 2 years old, we can assume that these figures are higher today as well. With such high levels of internet users and low levels of banking access, Africa could very well be already primed and waiting for a spark that starts massive Bitcoin adoption. You can also see from the tweet above that, posted by cryptokoala_AUS, several African nations suffer from excessively inflating currencies. Zimbabwe. By being deflationary by design, Bitcoin could not only provide banking access to hundreds of millions of people living with internet access, yet no banking facilities, but also present an option for them to opt out of the currency pushed by their often corrupt national governments in favor of something highly resistant to banking malpractices. Is Africa waking up to Bitcoin? Two useful yet ultimately inconclusive metrics to measure the rate of Bitcoin adoption are the number of Bitcoin trades occurring from within a given territory and the number of companies choosing to accept the digital currency in exchange for goods and services. Firstly, the trading volumes reported by CoinDance show that over 1,380 Bitcoin changed hands on local Bitcoins in regions covered by the analytics service. This is by no means a complete list of African nations and their Bitcoin trading. However, notable contributors to this total were Nigeria with 903 and South Africa with 288 and Kenya with 88. Comparisons to other important markets seem favorable to the African continent at first glance, with higher local Bitcoin with a higher local Bitcoins total than all of Europe, which at 803 traded less than Nigeria alone last week with the peer-to-peer platform. However, there are multiple issues with this comparison. Most notable of these is that European citizens have far better access to the banking infrastructure and necessary forms of identification required to trade Bitcoin at more formal exchanges such as Binance, Coinbase, or Kraken. This is highlighted by the fact that data.bitcoinity.org reports over 53,000 Bitcoin was traded on centralized exchanges using the euro currency over the week period referenced above. This compares it to a total of 0 listed for African currencies. Supporting this view of an African continent yet to embrace Bitcoin is data from coinmap.org, a website focused on showing businesses that accept the digital asset. Here, Africa is the largest untouched landmass. Yep. And Asia. A lot of Asia is out of the picture there. Surprisingly, a lot of Asia is. I would suppose that includes Russia. Anyway, continuing. There is clearly a lot of potential for Bitcoin use to spread across the continent of Africa. Issues with corruption, inflation, and lack of banking options seem the norm rather than the exception. According to the Elixir report, many of the African nation of Uganda actively shun banks on the grounds of distrust, too. All of this combines to make Africa a potentially highly receptive part of the world for Bitcoin adoption, not just Bitcoin. Competition for Bitcoin. The rise of the mobile money service provider. However, African nations have recently been noted as those most embracing of mobile money service providers. M-Pesa is one such service provider that now boasts 30 million users across 7 African nations. In fact, Africa has seen the fastest penetration of non-bank payment service providers. The Elixir report states that there were more registered accounts with mobile money service providers in 2016 than there were registered bank accounts across the region. Evidently, Bitcoin faces strong competition from these firms that are rapidly establishing themselves in place of banks for small business owners across Africa. However, the fight to bring parts of the continent into increasingly connected global economy is by no means lost for the world's #1 cryptocurrency. After all, Bitcoin remains far more useful for those living in corrupt jurisdictions, since it exists entirely outside of said corruption. Yeah, for the most part. In the United States, I would argue that the stable coins have kind of taken up the slack there, and we're actually going to get into that a little bit tonight as well. But yeah, largely unbanked populations in Africa, certainly a good start, or a good populace, however you want to look at it, a good populace to try to establish such a thing as a cryptocurrency economy. However, as I've found out, all of this shit is worthless without access to the internet. You know, pretty much everything. Facebook, Twitter, all of that shit. Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, all of it is completely useless without access to the internet. So, until we can establish internet access across the African continent in the way that it has been here in the United States to some extent, and elsewhere, we're not even rated #1. I think we're like number 50 as far as bandwidth access to people in the United States. And it's really sad, I think, because we developed so much of the technology behind it, you know. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. Got some Venom playing in the background, but I don't necessarily want to go that route. Let's go ahead and throw down a little bit of Soundgarden. Rusty Cage here on Coin Metal. And that was Killing Joke with Loose Cannon. Yeah. And as I promised, well, I don't know that I actually promised it or anything like that, but I did come across a article that I wanted to get into. Let's see, where's the that's the translated one, that's the translated one, and that's not the translated one, but not the one that we actually want to talk about. Not that one. Not that one. Damn it, Jim. I had it right here. A little bit. No, that's not it. Oh, what the hell? No, that's not it. Here we go. Wanted to get into this article because it seemed to promise something good. Real fiat-backed stablecoins pass legal muster with the SEC and CFTC. I've been asking this same fucking question for about, I don't know, ever since fucking Tether came onto the market. Anyway, this is on Coindesk.com. It's by Jake Chervinsky. My apologies, sir. Benjamin Sauter. And so, double penis. This is authored on March 2nd, 2019 at 1100 UTC. Updated March 2nd, 2019 at 1104 UTC. Okay. As we enter the second year of this so-called crypto winter, the stable market is hotter than ever. In recent months, stablecoins digital assets pegged to the value of fiat currencies like the US dollar have exploded in size and variety thanks to high-profile offerings from companies like Circle, Paxos, and Gemini. Even traditional banks are joining in the action, with JP Morgan recently announcing its own stablecoin-like product called JPM Coin. Thus far, stablecoins have largely avoided public scrutiny. You haven't been here on fucking crypto Twitter, man. Bitfinex has spent years fucking ripping them a new asshole. Give me a break. Avoid public scrutiny, my ass. And criticism from, maybe from agencies like the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodities Future Trading Commission, CFTC, which had been focusing their attention on many issues arising out of the 2017 initial coin offering bubble instead. Yet these stablecoins see greater capital inflows and industry adoption. The SEC and CFTC will likely take a harder look at their compliance status. Unfortunately for stablecoin proponents, agencies like the SEC and CFTC are often quick to assert their jurisdiction over new financial innovations, even if their intervention might not serve the best interests of an emerging industry. Stablecoins 101. Stablecoins promise many of the same benefits as other cryptocurrencies, like cheap transactions and rapid settlement, without the price volatility typically found in crypto markets. Through that combination, stablecoins could satisfy the demand for high-quality fiat currencies in parts of the world with limited access to the global financial system, like Iran or Venezuela. Stablecoins could also be useful for crypto exchanges that want to offer fiat-based trading pairs while reducing their engagement with legacy financial institutions. To maintain their one-to-one peg with fiat currencies, most stablecoins use either fiat collateralized, crypto collateralized, or algorithmic model. Fiat collateralized stablecoins are backed by actual fiat currencies, supposedly, held in reserve by the stablecoins issuers, whereas crypto-collateralized stablecoins are backed by digital assets locked in smart contracts. Algorithmic stablecoins, by contrast, aren't backed by collateral at all. Instead, they use various mechanisms to expand or contract their circulating supply as necessary to maintain a stable value. Yeah, they suck the value out of the other coin in the exchange. Duh. It was this type of stablecoin that apparently caught the SEC's attention last year. A basis for concern. In April 2018, an algorithmic stablecoin called Basis made headlines when it raised $133 million from several prominent funds and venture firms. But only 8 months later, Basis shut down unexpectedly and returned its remaining capital to investors. The reason for shuttering, according to Basis CEO Nader Al-Naji, we met with the SEC to clarify a lot of our thinking and got the impression that we would not be able to avoid securities classification. Yeah, no shit, because you're the issuing fucking entity, duh! It's not hard to see why the SEC might view Basis through the lens of a securities offering. The Basis protocol was designed to maintain stability by auctioning bond and share tokens to investors who would profit as long as Basis held its peg. Tokens like these could qualify as investment contracts under U.S. law, and thus many fall within the definition of a security. Apparently, the Basis team decided that the regulatory requirements imposed by that classification were too onerous to overcome. Despite Basis's startling end, there hasn't been much discussion in the crypto industry about how U.S. securities and commodities laws might apply to stablecoins. Bullshit, I've been talking all about it! In fact, most industry players seem to take for granted that fiat collateralized stablecoins are safe from regulatory scrutiny. Bullshit! That assumption may prove to be dangerous. It will most certainly prove to be dangerous. Stablecoin regulation under federal law. Most dollar-backed stablecoins are created in roughly the same way purchasers deposit. Most dollar-backed stablecoins are created in roughly the same way. Purchasers deposit dollars with a stablecoin issuer, and in exchange, the issuer mints and returns an equivalent amount of the stablecoin. The process also works in reverse. Stablecoin holders can send a stablecoin back to its issuer in exchange for an equivalent amount of dollars. Given how these stablecoins are redeemed, the SEC might characterize them as, quote, demand notes, which are traditionally defined as two-party negotiable instruments obligating the debtor to pay the note holder at any time upon request. According to the Supreme Court's 1990s decision in Reeves v. Ernst Young, demand notes are presumed to be securities under the Exchange Act Section 3A10 unless an exemption or exclusion applies. For its part, the CFTC might take the position that stablecoins are, quote, swaps under Commodity Exchange Action Section 1A47A. That provision defines a swap to include an quote, option of any kind that is for the purchase or sale or based on the value of one or more interest or other rates, currencies, commodities, or other financial or economic interests or property of any kind. Under that definition, the CFTC might characterize stablecoins as options for the purchase of or based on the value of fiat currencies. Of course, individuals and companies dealing with stablecoins will have good arguments as to why the quote demand note and swap classifications shouldn't apply. For example, issuers could invoke the Reeves Court's family resemblance test for demand notes or challenge the CFTC's jurisdiction over retail foreign currency options, depending on the circumstances. The regulators, however, may take a different view. What could this mean for stablecoins? If stablecoins are classified as regulated securities or swaps, there could be serious consequences for a large segment of the crypto industry. For example, stablecoin issuers might have to register their offerings and comply with all the ensuing regulatory requirements. Similarly, the company or fund that conducts or facilitates stablecoin transactions might have to register as a broker-dealer. Plus, the SEC and CFTC aren't the only regulators that may take an interest in stablecoins. Only time will tell how other state and federal entities, such as the New York Department of Financial Services, NYDFS, or the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, will approach the regulation of stablecoins, particularly if they are used to avoid trade sanctions or other transaction reporting obligations. For now, it's clear that anyone who issues or uses stablecoins should give considerable thought to their potential risk under U.S. securities and commodities laws. I have said this multiple times. If there is anything in crypto that could be classified as a security, it would be stablecoins. Because there is an issuing third-party intermediary between the customer and the fiat currency or cryptocurrency in exchange. This entity is determining the value of or the rate of exchange. And so they are trusted to have, in the case of stablecoins based on balances of US dollars or other fiat currency, they are being trusted that they actually have the reserves to back one-to-one every coin in existence, or at least every one of their stablecoins. So in the example of Tether, they supposedly have at least $1 to represent every US dollar tether or tether token in circulation right now, which I think is somewhere over $3 billion. However, they have to date failed to have any kind of regulatory entity require of them an audit, nor have they fulfilled an audit, the requirement of an audit that any other entity would be required to do. Like if you were a cryptocurrency exchange within the United States, there are several requirements that you have on you to maintain balances, at least to some sort of fractional amount, of the funds that are actually obligated or committed on your obligated or being traded on your exchange. Whereas stablecoins, they've been given like carte blanche, and like I said, I really think that in the case of like Tether, that we're going to dig deep down and we're going to find out that they're actually some sort of subsidiary of the Federal Reserve Bank. And that's the only reason that they've been given the level of trust that they have been on exchanges. That's just my suspicion. I mean, because really, they're the only people that have had that level of deference, where it's like, oh, what, you haven't audited how many you have in circulation? No, that's okay, we'll let it slide for right now. Give me a fucking break. You know, I find it appalling that we see such regulatory aggression against ICOs, which in fact have, in the case of Ethereum-based ICOs at least, on-chain verifiable amounts of Ethereum. Anybody can verify it. They don't need the SEC to say, oh yeah, the last time we checked the cold wallets, they were cool with the number of tokens that were out there existing. No, everybody can do it. Your fucking kid brother can do it. So that takes the necessity for a regulatory body over your shoulder saying what to do. Now, in the case of stable coins, the issuer is the entity that is the trusted entity. And thus, there are several regulations that actually apply to them. And I think in the not-so-distant future, we are going to see some regulatory scrutiny, and only the entities that have already issued their coins, like USDC, which is Circle's coin, which is actually Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan coin, they're going to find that their licensure already covers them, and really all they have to account for is the surety requirements that they actually have, you know, one-to-one for whatever it is that they're claiming they have in circulation. So, you know, it's what we kind of imagined all along, that basically if you confine crypto activity within these certain realms, you know, like a US dollar pairing or something to that effect, you are going to run into existing regulatory frameworks. They exist. That's why Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies like it exist as they do. They do not require a third-party arbiter. They do not require a mommy or daddy to tell you that you can or cannot transact it within a nation or a state or a time or age group or sexuality or any of that. It's permissionless by design. And it is with that I'd like to go ahead and close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want you all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And as far as The Last Dance is concerned, I was going to do Glint's Collide, but that's a little teeny tiny bit too long. So we're going to have to scroll down. I've been dying to play Metalocalypse all night long. And so I guess this is a good an opportunity as any. And so for The Last Dance, briefcase full of guts. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening.